We have to change our tactics because the same tactics we've been using, people are finally adapted to it. And it's like bouncing a tennis ball off a brick wall. If you're going to knock down the wall, you're going to need more than a tennis ball. So, what I think needs to happen is,
Hi, Terry. Welcome back to Pots. So let's talk about how the movement is doing.
well, I've been in some verbal sparring with people who I have to admit, they think some of us are very, very weird, especially the people walking around with stains on their pants, you know?
Do you think that they're very judgmental of other intactivists?
I wouldn't say that. I just think that it's gotten a bit overdone. I think that the shock value is gone. And when women are doing the same thing, I think now some people are just viewing us as nutcases.
What do you think should change about that?
Well, I've often said that educating people is a very good thing, and I think that it's very helpful and it must be done. But some people don't want to be educated, and in my estimation, the only thing that's going to get this to change is lawsuits. We're going to have to find some lawyers that can win lawsuits. And I don't know if that's happened. I did speak to one guy up in Minnesota about it who has taken on some cases, but that was, gosh, that was a couple of years ago.
So, do you think that the time for standing outside holding signs, demonstrating is over?
Yeah, that's a great question because I'll tell you, right now, I think America is burned out on demonstrations. Everybody's doing demonstrations about something. And I'll give you an example of that. Here in Newport, Vermont, they were always having these public awareness marches for you name it, whatever cause, and people are just burned out on it. They stopped doing one of them because the one year I think they had like five marches. One was breast cancer awareness, and then they had suicide awareness and mental health awareness. And I finally got to the point where I said, I'm aware of all these things. I don't need to be aware anymore. I'm very well aware of it. So I think in some cases, people are kind of burned out on protests.
Do you think that the bloodstained men need a new routine?
Yes, I do. I think that it's getting somewhat passe, and it isn't shocking anybody. People are treating it now like it's a big joke. Even Alice Cooper, eventually he failed to shock people because everybody's seen it so much, you know. There comes a point in time when you have to try something different or something new. Sometimes when you hold a mirror up in front of people, it shocks them so much that they automatically tune you out.
How do you think the bloodstained men should change their outfits?
Maybe stop with all the fake blood on their pants.
So, what do you think they need to try?
I'm not sure where to go from here, but I just know that, like I said, demonstrations are becoming too many and too often, and people are just tuning them out now. I have several books about circumcision, and some from all the way back in the 1980s. I think I have one by Rosemary Romberg. I've had a couple of books here, and it just seems to me so unintelligent. Here's a good example for everyone that's watching this. In 1948, the NIH came about in Great Britain, the National Institute of Health. All right, it's 1950, their circumcision rate went from 50% to 1%. Here in the US, in Vermont, Blue Cross Blue Shield de-insured, and it hardly made a blip. If Blue Cross and Blue Shield will not cover it because it is not medically necessary, people are so entrenched in wanting this that they pay for it out of pocket. And it just boggles my imagination as why people would do this.
So, what do you think the most effective way is to get through to people now?
Well, it would be nice if you could contact doctors directly, but where I am, I've been trying to find contact information for all the pediatricians, OBGYNs, and urologists, and I can't get any information on them. They give a picture and you have to call through their main switchboard. You can't like email the doctor. I know years ago I used to be able to get information and call a doctor's office and ask them, but I can't get that. And Vermont doesn't even track them anymore. Circumcision hasn't been tracked here in Vermont since the late 90s. I wish I knew why, but they don't.
What methods would you want to use if you were running an intactivist group?
I would ask the question, if this is medically not necessary, why are doctors still doing it? And that's what I would ask any doctor. If it's not medically necessary, why are you still doing it?
What would be your means to ask that question?
Well, I would have to restrain myself, because if I knew a doctor was doing these, I would just point blank say, why are you still doing these if you know they're not medically necessary? And then they might make up 1,001 excuses for which I'd always have an answer. I know I got into this argument one time. You're going to find this funny. It was back in 2006. I got into an argument with my former pastor, and it was about the Bible. And I said, well, the Bible has too many contradictions. He said, well, no, it doesn't. He said, like what? And I said, circumcision. Oh, he says, we don't do that anymore. I said, well, people are citing the Bible. And then I went on and on and on for about 5 minutes. And I kept giving him medical information because he had his two boys done. Oh, he said, it's got to be done. I said, no, it doesn't. There's no medical need. And then he comes up with the excuse, well, they don't remember it. And well, they bounce right back, and this and this and this. And I said, how can you tell me it's medically needed when no other country in the world does it? At that time, he got very irate and started quoting the Bible.
How could he say
Which
we no longer do that if he did it to his
I'm,
students?
as Christians, is not indicated. In other words, in the Old Testament, it was required under the old law, but the New Testament, they're not supposed to do it for biblical reasons. So he tried to tell me all the excuses, for doing it. And when I shot down every one of them, he went right back to the Bible and he said, the Bible says that we must do these. And he wasn't just talking about circumcision. He was trying to coerce me, along with one other person, into getting baptized. And I wasn't having any of it.
But he told you that only the Old Testament demands it and the new one doesn't. But was he
Exactly.
citing the New Testament?
He was just citing the Bible in general, saying the Bible indicates that you must get baptized in order to be saved. So I said, I ain't going to see you in heaven then. I quit the church right after that.
So he only said that circumcision needs to be done for medical reasons and not New
Right,
Testament biblical reasons.
right. But like I said, whenever I shot him down medically, he went back to the Bible, which is very typical of a lot of preachers and pastors. They like to quote the Bible
Why would he keep going back to the Bible if he said the Bible doesn't require it?
because he wanted me to get baptized.
So he was changing the subject. So,
Yeah.
oh, maybe he just
So,
wanted to have some form of control over you.
well, like I said, he and one other person. And finally, I said, listen, I said, the Bible also says you must be circumcised. And I said, that ain't going to happen, mister.
Hey guys, it's me, Pots. I'm briefly interrupting this interview to let you know about the Pots e-commerce program. It is vital to keeping the Prevail Over the System channel alive. Go and join us on our Discord to learn more. And best of all, it's free to partake in the Pots e-commerce program, and we don't need any of your information whatsoever. This helps us keep the interviews coming along with other Intactivist content to empower, teach, and update Intactivists with very important information, as well as being the voice for the Intactivist public. Thank you all so much. Okay, now back to the interview.
So we've sparred over this a couple of times. And when I did attend church, since then, I go to church occasionally with my wife because she likes me to go to church with her. Every once in a while, he mentions circumcision and biblical things and like that. And every time I call his ass on the carpet, I said, you're still promoting this, aren't you? No, no, no. I was just quoting scripture. I said, yeah, right. Sure. Tell me about it. You're just promoting it like everybody else.
How could he quote scripture that approves of it and then say that the New Testament doesn't require it?
Because he can quote the Old Testament. He said in the Old Testament they did this and this and this, and such was circumcised, and this one was circumcised. And once in a while he throws it out there. I call him on it whenever I hear it. I've only been to church like once or twice a year for the past 5 years. So I'm really tired of everybody making excuses, because it seems that we Americans don't want to hear the truth. I sometimes chat with people on Facebook, and when that subject comes up, I've said to people, why did you do that to your son? It's not medically indicated. Oh, well, everybody else does it, so I thought we should. And I'm going, does anybody have a brain to think with? Is it just follow the leader? Here's a good quote for you. This has nothing to do with circumcision, but it's the same sort of idea. Bill Maher said, there are the progressives and then there are the conservatives. The progressives like to put their foot on the gas, and conservatives like to keep their foot on the brake. He says, I like to keep my foot on the gas, but I'm not going to do it if I'm going over a cliff.
Then we have to get the masses to see that circumcision is going towards the cliff.
Yeah. Yeah. In other words, oh, I do it because everybody else does it. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. Oh, I want my boy to look like everyone else in the locker room. That's so stupid. I want my boy to look like me. Well, it's all unbelievably irrelevant. Obviously, they don't have any idea the damage it causes and the suffering. And even when they know, they still do it. However, like I said, it's better than it was. And then you get people like Bill Gates and Hillary Clinton who got this great big pool of money and went over to Africa and told all the men in Africa that if you got circumcised, it would prevent AIDS.
Which was not really intended to prevent AIDS.
Well, that was what they pitched. And when these guys got circumcised, oh, no, I can have sex with anybody and I won't get AIDS. And AIDS went rampant.
Yeah, that was the real plan. That's what Bill Gates really wanted to accomplish.
Well, I remember watching the video of Hillary Clinton pitching this idea back in 2016. I saw the video of her. This is going to be voluntary, and we're going to Africa, and we have these millions of dollars, and we're going to try to stop AIDS by circumcising these men. And of course, I have another opinion of Hillary Clinton that I won't mention. Maybe men are marginalized and maligned so much in America that the only way to stop circumcision is to stop marginalizing us. How many times have you gone on TV, watched a show or a commercial, and the guy is always made a fool of? Men are the fools. I mean, all the way back into the 70s when I was watching Three's Company, Jack, whatever his name was, he was always being made a fool of. He was always a dummy. And you see it in commercials and you see it in TV shows. And hopefully someday that will change where men are not marginalized and maligned. And once this stops, then you're going to see some changes. Fortunately, there are a lot of people who are getting a clue, but nationwide it's still only about 50%.
It's amazing a lot of people don't realize that for the most part, this world was built up by and still maintained by men. The technology, the infrastructure, so much of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I have a very lovely wife who acknowledges the fact that, she needs me. There's some things she can't do. Of course, there's some things that I can't do that she does, which is the way it ought to be. But as long as we're at loggerheads and as long as we men are looked down on, I mean, when you think about it, one of the first arguments I heard for doing circumcision was, it's easier to keep clean. I said, who is it easier for, the kid or you? Oh, it's easier for me to keep it clean. I mean, how selfish is that? You're going to cut off a healthy skin tissue and make this kid suffer just so you can have it easier?
Shouldn't be apparent then if you're thinking like that.
Yep. And I remember that woman very well. She wasn't the only one. There were several others. No, it's easier to keep clean. Yeah, it's easier for you. It doesn't easier for the kid. And even now, you have men who are circumcised, and when they see this operation, some of them still go right along with it. I cannot understand it. I just cannot understand why this keeps going. Oh, the other one I remember. The other thing I've seen on Facebook through Bloodstained Men and some others on it, if you don't know what it means, you think we're a bunch of weirdos. Saying circumcision ruined the hand job. If you didn't know that was a reference to Kellogg, who thought that masturbation was disgusting, then you would think, what? Because the first time I saw it, I was kind of puzzled too, and then I finally figured it out. But I think stuff like that is not helping us. We have to change our tactics because the same tactics we've been using, people are finally adapted to it, and it's like bouncing a tennis ball off a brick wall. If you're going to knock down the wall, you're going to need more than a tennis ball. So what I think needs to happen is we need to have a little more camaraderie. People need to stop being so angry. And when somebody wants to bring you good news, it would be nice if you'd like to hear it. Because I don't know, 2 or 3 times I've said, hey, everybody, how would you like to hear some good news? Nobody replies. I was telling people about my trip to Hawaii, and somebody has to come right on and say, would you like to hear about Hawaii's dirty little secret? They have 90% circumcision rate. We weren't even talking about it. You know, there are other things you can talk about. And besides, I actually brought them some good news, but they didn't really want to hear it.
In your first interview, you said if a parent circumcises their son, they're either misinformed or a horrible person. And you said your granddaughter witnessed circumcisions in nursing school and she was horrified by them, but she still had her son circumcised. So, what do you think of that?
It just baffles me as to why she would bow to the pressure of having it done. I know somebody must have pressured her into doing it. It had to be either husband or his family, because her mom was totally against it and did not have her brother circumcised. My stepdaughter didn't even know what it was. And when she saw it, she was so horrified. She says, that will never happen to my son. And she had two girls and a boy, and he was left intact. So all I can say is why she had that done, she must have been under some kind of pressure. And I can only guess who it was.
Thank you for your time today, Terry.
It was my pleasure. You have a great day, sir.
All right, thank you.
All right, that was Terry's interview with Scott. Please go ahead and let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. I'm going to go ahead and put all of Terry's links down in the description so you can follow and support him if you want. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our other Intactivist content and interviews we release every single week. Please share and like this video to get this out to more people. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Bye.
Prevail over the system. We rise through precision. Uplift transition. Rebuild.